the Sony RX100 Mark VII and the Canon G7X Mark III. Both of these cameras are looking to revolutionize the way that point-and-shoot cameras actually operate in the marketplace. They both shoot 4K 30 frames per second uncropped, they both have really darn good stabilization, and heck, the most exciting part of all for me is they both have a microphone in port on the side. However, one of these, cough cough, RX100 Mark VII costs almost double the other. But is it actually worth that extra cost? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Whew, it has been a point and shoot kind of month so far, with Canon releasing updates to both the G7 and G5X range, and Sony releasing the monster of all portable video cameras at the top of their wildly popular RX line. It's just been nuts. While I may not talk about them all that often, I actually really like point and shoot cameras. And I've been personally using an RX100 Mark V for over a year now for travel and backup camera recording, and it's like my main family camera besides my cell phone. Now, I would really quickly like to thank my friends over at B&H Photo for loaning me the Canon G7X Mark III for the past few weeks as I've made its series of videos. Now, I may not personally like it that much for video, but if you do and would like to get one because it is kind of a good stills camera, there will be links in the description below. And no disclaimer needed on the RX, as I recently purchased this one myself like the second I got back from Sony Kondo 3.0. I mean, it's okay. So really quickly, let's throw these up on the sticks to be the B and the C cam for the rest of the video. Okay, now we're on the G7X Mark III, the RX100 Mark VII, and the GH5. So on to the three most important aspects of a camera for the online video creator: video quality, ease of use, and ecosystem/upgrade path. Not as important here, so we're not necessarily going to cover this so we can save some time. I love saving time. First up, video quality. And I do like to start this part of the comparisons off with a really quick relevant spec comparison. Both of these cameras have a 20 megapixel 1-inch CMOS sensor, and while I can't prove it because I don't actually know the nomenclature of the sensor installed in each, I'm pretty sure both of these are rocking Sony sensors. So if you're a camera person, that's not shocking at all. But the G7X is rocking the sensor from the RX100 Mark IV, which is great, but it's really starting to show its age. Like, this is an old sensor. The G7X Mark III has a 24 to 100 millimeter equivalent zoom range that's 1.8 at the wide end and 2.8 at the zoom, which honestly, for a zoom lens, is pretty darn amazing. That might be the strongest aspect of the G7X Mark III. And it has a built-in ND, so with one tap, you can manage your exposure with that faster lens much better. The RX100 Mark VII, on the other hand, has a 24 to 200 millimeter equivalent zoom that's 2.8 at the wide and 4.5 at the zoom. And as opposed to the G7X Mark III, this is probably the most disappointing part of the camera because I really wish it also had 1.8 at the wide, but we'll talk more. I'm willing to give that up. They can both record in up to 4K 30 frames per second and 1080p in up to 120 frames per second. But additionally, the RX has a HFR high frame rate mode that will allow for up to 960 frames per second. Honestly, the 480 really being the noiseless limit for YouTube, and the G7X, get this, cannot record in 24 frames per second in any way, shape, or form. Not in 4K, not in 1080p, not at all. Now, the RX can record in 24, 30, and both 60 frames per second in 1080p if that's like your thing. So 24 frames per second, much better because you can actually do it on the Sony. Both have electronic and lens-based stabilization, leading to some very nice looking stabilized footage. Now, the biggest difference in my opinion though comes from the autofocus, because while Canon is known for their excellent autofocus, it's sorely lacking here. The G7X has a contrast-based autofocus system that we'll hear much more about later, trust me, because it's pretty bad. The RX100 Mark VII has Sony's newest and best phase detection autofocus. Like right now, it is doing eye detection autofocus in video. Like, it's crazy. Like, I see the box around my eye. It's nuts. I mean, it's solid, and I mean solid, and it might be topping the A6400 as my favorite focusing camera of all time. And if you watch my content, you know That's a crazy statement for you to make. But the actual image quality on both cameras is really good. Now, I do think the cameras do a really good job of having nice looking 4K. That being said, I do like the image quality out of the RX100 Mark VII much more than the G7X for a couple of reasons. I find that even the standard picture profiles on the RX have much more usable dynamic range, and you can get that without needing to tweak anything. And heck, if you want like the max dynamic range, the RX100 Mark VII even shoots in Sony's S-Log format. Now, the G7X doesn't have Canon C-Log or any real flat profiles. I mean, it does have enough dynamic range that you could easily use this as a vlogging camera during the day, and you wouldn't necessarily have problems. And for, like we said, for exposure, that ND filter goes a long way towards getting correct exposure on the G7X. But another negative, it only has full manual or full auto mode. I mean, there isn't an aperture priority or a shutter priority mode for video, only on stills. I mean, the M50 is a lot like that too, but that's still pretty disappointing because when I'm running and gunning, I like to set my camera to shutter priority to keep the motion blur natural, and I'm willing to sacrifice the background blur, but you don't get that on the G7X. Now, when it comes to the RX, the biggest problem for me is the lack of built-in ND and the 2.8 at the wide end, but honestly, I don't think that the 2.8 is that big of a deal. It's a 1-inch sensor anyway, so you're not necessarily going to be getting crazy shallow depth of field, and Sony is getting so good at low light that even in this video, the Canon's been set to as wide as it can go, and the Sony set to as wide as it can go, and the Sony looks amazing. It's probably, I can't tell because of the screen, complain about the Sony, but it's probably like 3.5 or something like that. Image quality is only half of the battle, and both of these actually do really well for the other part, audio, because they both have a 3.5mm audio in jack, which is insanely awesome. And it really puts these cameras in a whole new level of usability and basically changes what a point and shoot is capable of. Before these, you had to record audio off camera or put like little fluffy mounts on top of it because you couldn't get a microphone. Now you can, and it's crazy. But let's put all of this video quality theory to the test with a quick video / vlogging test. See you out there. Welcome to the vlogging test of the Canon G7X Mark III and the Sony RX100 Mark VII. Now, both of these cameras do have built-in stabilization, and I have that stabilization turned on right now. And one of the things that you're probably curious about is audio, because they both do have audio. Whoa, it's so bright. They both do have audio in jacks. However, we're just using this with the internal microphones of the camera. Since they both have audio in jacks, they are both perfectly good at recording audio. If you want to see more examples of how they specifically work, you can see each of their individual video here. Ding! But yeah, I have both cameras currently set to their auto setting because the G7X only has auto or manual. Normally I have the Sony set up in shutter priority. And like we've said, the G7X has an ND filter where you would see the difference in that is you might see a little bit blurry of a background on the G7X as opposed to the RX100 Mark VII because it is 2.8 at the wide and this is 1.8 at the wide. But honestly, when it comes to 1-inch cameras, there's not that big of a difference. The thing that you're really going to see is probably autofocus and dynamic range. The RX100 Mark VII has Sony's just insane eye autofocus in video. It is some of the best autofocus I've ever seen in my life. And the G7X has like contrast-based autofocus from back when like the Sony was using their RX100 Mark IV sensor and image processing from their RX100 Mark IV days, which was a long time ago. This is the image quality, this is the vlogging capability you could get. They're both 24mm at the widest, so you're not gonna get like everything, but I find this is pretty good for like quick vlogging type stuff. I do think the stabilization on the Sony's better than the stabilization on the G7X, and obviously the autofocus, it's not even close. It's not even close. How's the dynamic range? Like, I'm kind of in shadow right now with my hat. How's all that? How all the leaves looking like the bright? This is a, I bet that umbrella is the thing that's gonna get like straight up blown out because of how bright it is. But yeah, this is the image quality. This is the vlogging test of the two cameras. Back inside. And we're back. Now, I love making videos with small cameras. I mean, my old man shoulders fully support having to carry less weight. As you get older, you'll understand. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, the RX100 has an amazing image quality, and when the autofocus works, the G7X actually has decent image quality too, but when it works. But what really matters to me most is how easy is it to get that image quality. I don't like cameras that need babied to work. I just need a camera that can work. So ease of use on these two cameras seems like it should be similar, but it's actually quite different. Now, I do divide ease of use into pre and post hitting record. And honestly, the G7X Mark III wipes the floor with the Sony for pre-ease of use. It's got a really easy to use body that not only has a good amount of physical buttons, but also has a fully touch-enabled screen, which is something that I very much wish every camera had. So you can really easily tap through the menus to set the camera up the way you want, and even the Canon menu system itself has less options, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because it does have a cleaner overall image to manage over the Sony. Now, the Sony does use the newer user interface, which I find much better and totally usable even though people complain about it all the time. I find that to be much better than older iterations. But the difference is the fully flip up screen here doesn't have touch functionality. Now, you can tap to focus, but you can't actually use it to switch through the menus, making it a little harder to establish the first time and harder if I wanted to make a quick change here. Like on the Canon, I can go boop, 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 boop. On the Sony, I can't. It does have plenty of physical buttons and dials, but sometimes you just want to change frame rates by tapping a few times. You don't want to hit the menu. Over, down, enter, down, right, select, start. I mean, we're not playing Contra here. I just want to go from 4K to 1080p. I don't want to take 5 minutes to do it. Though, you can take all the time you want to actually set up the camera. After you record, the pressure is on, and here it's reversed. The Canon G7X Mark III is one of the worst cameras I've ever used for this section. Its autofocus is super unreliable. Like, you almost want it to have a slower lens so the depth of field is deeper and you don't have to worry about it because you cannot trust the autofocus on this camera. I really hope it's working through this video so I can still cut to it. Not only that, but in my quick tests, it overheats faster than the RX, but once you're overheated, like that's it. It just stops working for a long period of time. Now, I had it overheat outside on me. I waited for 15 minutes. I got fed up. Then I went home. Then I had to wait an additional 15 minutes inside of my air-conditioned house for the camera to finally decide that it wanted to start working again. That's unacceptable. Like, I'm sorry, Canon. I like your cameras. That's unacceptable. I mean, it's unacceptable for any camera, but this is a brand new camera that shouldn't have these issues. Now, I am fine with a point and shoot camera overheating if it's recording in 4K. Now, I've been using the RX100 Mark V for a long time now, and it can barely do, like, it has problems with heat. Shutting down for this long of time, like even right now as we're talking, the overheating icon on the Canon is turned on, and I hope it will last at least for the rest of the video. In happier news though, the RX100 Mark VII is just about the easiest camera to use I've ever had when it records. The autofocus is insanely good. The stabilization is awesome, even without needing to put it through that extra step of the Sony app, which I refuse to do, by the way. The audio preamps are fantastic. I mean, it's just a great all-in-one package. And the best part is, if you turn the heat level to high, you can record for much longer than 5 minutes at a time. The Canon just overheated, by the way, and we had to start recording in 1080p. Bringing me back to the RX, the best part is if you turn the heat level to high, you can record for much longer than the 5 minutes, and that's insane. Inside my slightly warm office here, indoors, I can get to go for over 30 minutes without much of an issue. That's crazy. That's better than some big DSLRs right now. Plus, it's so small that you can use it with even smaller gimbals, like this Zhun Crane M2. Now, no kidding, I'm so excited to use the 7 so much more. I mean, that's why I personally bought it in the first place, but it's so easy to use. It's so good. So, okay, I'm not gonna gush. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, point and shoot cameras really don't have much of an ecosystem to worry about because they are, again, all-in-one tiny packages. Now, I would recommend, and something that I'll probably end up getting, is a screen protector for the RX100 Mark VII, because if you use polarized sunglasses like some of us, now you won't be able to see the screen when you're outdoors, because the way that they have it set up, you just can't. And 2, get one of those magnetic variable ND adapters if you find your footage to be a little overexposed, because the camera will only stop down to f11. The G7X Mark III really doesn't need anything on paper, because it's just about a perfect package on paper. Paper doesn't make videos, unfortunately. But when it comes right down to it, so what, right? Is the RX100 Mark VII worth twice as much as the G7X Mark III? Yes, absolutely. Without any hesitation, I recommend the RX over the GX, like not even close. And I generally really like Canon cameras. The RX100 Mark VII is amazing. Like legitimately, it might be the absolute perfect YouTuber travel camera. Awesome stabilization, great low light, insane autofocus, really solid preamps. Its high frame rate slow motion also makes it like perfect for handheld B-roll. Like this tech, vlogging, commentary, everybody could use this camera. I mean, it is expensive, but it could literally do everything a YouTuber would want. Now, it's not gonna replace my primary GH5, but this combined with this gimbal and a small audio device is now my travel rig, and I absolutely cannot wait to make more videos about it. Thanks for watching.